I want you to imagine your body as a towering skyscraper, a magnificent structure built to withstand the tests of time and adversity. Think of each critical element that upholds this towering structure as essential pillars of support, anchoring it firmly to the ground, ensuring its steadfastness against the ever-changing forces of nature. Without the steel beams that reinforce the skyscraper's frame, the building would sway and cause it to be unstable. Without the electricity flowing through the building, needing to sustain its operations and maintain its integrity, the building would weaken, its materials deteriorating over time and leaving it vulnerable. Without the repair crew and maintenance workers tasked with restoring the skyscraper to its former glory after enduring the rigors of daily life, it would deteriorate. Now imagine what happens when one of these critical elements is removed or compromised. The skyscraper's frame begins to buckle and its once solid structure weakened and unstable. Allowing minor issues to escalate leads to major problems. In fact, just like these critical elements play a vital role in upholding the skyscraper's strength and stability, the exact same elements impact every part of our lives, including our running. Today, I'm going to show you why you, as a female runner over the age of 40, are just like the strong, tall, powerful skyscraper, and how you need to stop yourself from slowly falling apart and collapsing. And yes, I mean that literally. You're probably thinking, Shona, aren't you being slightly dramatic? But in this video, I'm going to show you exactly why each aspect of this architectural marvel represents a vital component of your running performance, forming the very foundation upon which your athletic journey rests. And I'm going to share with you what you need to do about it by making sure that you face these 4 hard truths female runners over 40 are never told, and the one thing that will without a doubt change your world. So let's look at a skyscraper, and more importantly, how your running is linked to this strong structure. A skyscraper is strong because it's built with sturdy materials like steel and concrete. And you're probably wondering, well, how does that apply to my body? In exactly the same way, our bones are the structure of our skyscraper. And our bones go through a remodeling process throughout our lives. From your late 20s, we start to lose bone formation. That is around 0.4% of bone health a year that we are losing. As we get closer towards perimenopause and menopause, that can escalate to between 3 to 6% per year. This constant loss of bone makes your structure weak and puts you at risk of things like osteoarthritis and osteopenia or osteoporosis much later in life. Other important structures in your body is your muscle mass. We are losing lean muscle mass as early as our 30s, consistently into our 40s, and then anywhere from 50 onwards, it becomes an exponential loss. And that is just from daily life, natural process of aging. These structural changes within your own body will affect the way you train in your 40s in comparison to how you were training in your 20s. That's not to say you can't achieve what you were or achieve more than what you were years ago. Let's go back to the skyscraper. Tall and mighty, stand alone against the backdrop of the city. Despite its towering height and imposing presence, it stands alone. And very often, I know females going through menopause feel alone. It's really, really important that we start changing the narratives around some of the taboo topics to do with menopause so that you don't have to feel alone in this journey. It's important to understand that some of the symptoms that you're feeling going through menopause and adding running on top of that can be very common and can be very normal, but we need to start talking about it. So, how do we get to the point of maintaining our skyscrapers or feeling strong, confident, and running better than we were in our 20s? Well, that's where the 4 hard truths for female runners come in. But to fully understand how they work, it's important to know what is actually going on in your body as you get older as a female and why that can lead to your skyscraper collapsing. The aging process is multifaceted. There are so many different aspects, but a lot of what's going on is you tend to start feeling tired and fatigued all the time. You're getting much slower, even though you'd feel like you're training harder. The different aspects I'm referring to in this aging process, the first and biggest one, are these hormonal changes. The hormonal fluctuations that you are experiencing are very detrimental just to your everyday life and to your running, because you no longer feel motivated to get out because you're constantly just feeling tired all the time. You also probably feel like you're training harder and harder, but not getting better. And that's because we are losing lean muscle mass consistently. And so you're asking your body to do the same amount of work with less capacity. I actually talk about all of these in our Running Through Menopause Masterclass in a lot more detail, and how you can practically make them work for you in your running. We're doing another one of those soon, so if you'd like to attend, it's free, and there's a link in the description below in this video to save your spot. So now it's time to take control and build your skyscraper correctly. Let's dive into the first of the 4 hard truths. There is already so much pressure to be more, be better. It's constantly being flashed in front of our faces thanks to social media. And the ability to recover between your sessions is where the magic really lies. And we need to maximize that even more as we age. So what if I told you that doing less would be even better? And that brings us to our first hard truth: running less. You may think I'm crazy. I'm telling you that you can get better with your running by running less. And the reason this is the case is because of recovery. We always think that we're getting the benefit of the exercise that we're doing while we're doing the exercise, but that's not how fitness and training works. You get the benefits of that exercise when you are recovering. The body breaks down while you're doing the exercise. The muscle fibers are actually tearing. Body doesn't like that feeling. And so when you recover, you allow the body to get itself a little bit stronger. And so by running less, you're actually allowing yourself more recovery time. So essentially you're allowing yourself more time to get the benefits of all the training you've just done. If you don't allow yourself this, you're just going to constantly dig yourself into a hole more and more and more. And as a female runner over the age of 40, this becomes even more important because of all the changes that we're going through. I'm a massive advocate for running less, especially and on condition you add the last hard truth to your plan. Interestingly, there's a new study that's come out. It is new, still needs to be peer reviewed, and so of course there are some limitations, but it's advocating essentially for running less. It shows that women get a greater health benefit to exercise compared to men. As an example, men's risk of cardiovascular disease dropped by 18% to this exercise protocol, whereas the female's risk of cardiovascular disease dropped by 25% doing the same exercise protocol, showing that women perhaps get more health benefits from exercise compared to men. The second hard truth is going to make some of you quite happy. Very often we're stressed for time, and so we think that going out there and running as fast as we can is going to make more difference. I'm here to tell you that is not the case. You do not need to always run faster to get faster. And that is why our second hard truth is slowing down in your easy and long runs. And so you're wondering, how do I run slower but still get faster? It's very important to note here that I'm talking about running slow in your easy and your long runs. And I actually prefer to use the word running easy compared to running slow, because slow is relative, right? So why does this work? When we're running, our muscles contract in 2 different ways. Every time you push off the ground, your muscles are contracting, but they're coming closer together. And every time you land on the ground, your muscles are still contracting, but they're pulling further apart. And that is essentially, while it's still a contraction, it's a weaker contraction, and it causes a lot more damage to the muscles. And so the faster you go, the more of these eccentric actions are happening, and so there's more damage to your muscles. When we then slow our easy runs down a little bit, we have less of these eccentric contractions, so less damage to the body, which then means you recover a little bit quicker, and it allows you to then go out and run your hard runs or your faster runs much more harder and faster. It just allows you more capacity to do those things. You still get the same aerobic benefit from slowing down just a little bit. That doesn't change, but you're just giving your body more chance to recover and more time to recover before your next session. As we're going through menopause, the hormonal changes are also going to be fluctuating and causing many different symptoms that are going to affect your running. And so by keeping your training runs easy, you are able to still then manage your menopausal symptoms and not exacerbate them. More and more, I am finding that female athletes that I consult with for injuries or for lack of performance have adjusted their diets in some way to manage their weight. And that is why the third hard truth has got to do with nutrition, and in particular, a focus on low energy availability. I know and understand that weight gain is something that females over the age of 40 tend to struggle with. And so you tend to restrict your diets in the hope of losing this weight gain. But if you do this continuously, and if you're also exercising really hard, you can find yourself in what we call low energy availability. So what is that? Essentially, our bodies require energy just to function, right? So as you're sitting there, you are utilizing energy just to keep going. Add on top of that exercise and daily tasks, running after the kids, walking up and down the stairs at the office. All of those things require energy. And so we need to ensure that we match our energy inputs, what we're eating, to our outputs. If we're constantly finding ourselves not quite matching this input, that it's just always falling low and low and low, the body starts to look after itself. It starts to turn off physiological systems that it doesn't use. So you may start finding that you may be getting injured, or that your body's not performing the way it used to, that you're tired and fatigued all the time. All of these things are the body's way of then trying to save energy, because it's not getting the energy that it needs from the outside. Low energy availability is on a spectrum of what we call relative energy deficiency in sport, or relative energy deficiency syndrome. Red S is on the far end of the spectrum, and low energy availability on this end. Along this whole spectrum, there are different physiological things that can happen, negative aspects that will happen. And it starts small. It starts with maybe not getting right in your performance, not recovering enough, maybe one or two niggling injuries, maybe getting sick consistently. All of those things can be happening. And then, of course, if you are continuously finding yourself in this low energy availability over months and months and months, we find ourselves down towards red S, which has severe implications: stress fractures, changes to your menstrual cycle, and essentially just really affecting the entire physiological system as a whole. This all sounds quite intense, and it is something to take very seriously, but you're probably thinking, okay, well, this is surely from months of not fueling correctly and months of not eating correctly, right? On the spectrum as a whole, yes, towards red S, and if we're getting towards really severe red S and severe symptoms, yes, that is months of disordered eating, not eating enough. But the negative effects of low energy availability can be seen if you're not fueling enough and eating correctly within a 4-day period. And so that's quick. I know that I've been there. I've done that, where I haven't eaten properly, perhaps for a week. Things have been stressful, haven't done much food prep, and I just haven't fueled my training. And for females who are perhaps going through perimenopause, the scary thing here is that many of the menopause symptoms are the same as the symptoms of low energy availability and red S. And so the first thing you should look at when you're feeling constantly fatigued, constantly getting injured, or not improving your running should be your nutrition intake, and to ensure that we are managing that scale of energy in versus energy out. And yes, this balance is important. But even more important than that is what we're eating. Red S and low energy availability is really a function of low or poor carb intake. Our bodies need to survive on carbohydrates. Our brain works on carbohydrates. And so when we're adding exercise and life to that, we are required to have more carbohydrates. Society has done us a disservice by making sure that carbohydrates are seen as the devil, but we have to ensure that we are taking in carbs so that we're managing our lives, as well as adding on any running or physical activity on that. When our body feels like it is not getting this balance correctly, it's going to find itself in a state of stress. When our bodies are in a state of stress, we have increased cortisol levels. Cortisol is a stress hormone. And so those increases in cortisol levels will also then mean that you won't be exercising properly. You won't be able to get all of those performance increments from your exercise because the body is just landing up in stress. It also is then going to mean that you're not going to be able to lose the weight that you are wanting to lose because, again, the body is in stress. And so the cycle just continues. You're not going to be able to lose the weight that you wanted to. And so you're going to restrict carbs a little bit more. And this happens. And you never land up managing the weights in the way you wanted to over time. Before we get to the one thing that will change your world, we still need to discuss hard truth number 4. And it should be a whole video on its own. In fact, in skyscraper terms, it's like using advanced engineering techniques that are almost guaranteed to distribute weight evenly and minimize stress on the structure. I'm talking about strength training. Why is strength training important? As I mentioned before, we are constantly losing lean muscle mass over time. That's just a normal aging process. That's going to happen either way. And strength training is the tool that you can use to combat that, to look after your muscles, to ensure that we're rebuilding that strength up and that you can continue to run well long after your 40s, 50s, and 60s. I'm going to touch on why strength training is important for runners now, but just to understand why strength training is important as we age, think about it like a muscle bank. The more strength you're doing and building up, the more you can withdraw from that bank the older you get. The same goes for your bones. Your bones need a force on them in order to keep remodeling. And we mentioned early how detrimental the natural aging process is to your structure, is to your bones. And so strength training, again, is that key for you to be able to look after your bones, build your muscle mass, put a lot in that bone and muscle bank so that you can take out of there as you get older. If you're not doing strength training at the moment, it's never too late to start. Much like a financial investment, even if you start later, you can still withdraw from it as opposed to not starting at all. And for runners, strength training is just absolutely a non-negotiable. It's going to help keep you injury-free from the loads of running, and it's going to make you a better runner. Running is a compounding sport. It's hard on your muscles and your joints, and it's cyclic. It's the same thing over and over and over again. And so the joints and muscles take a lot of strain. Strength training is then going to be your tool to help make those stronger so that you can enjoy running for much longer. And it has also just been proven over and over again to make you a better runner. It reduces fatigue, it improves your running economy, and just all around will make you a faster, stronger runner who can run for much longer. Now, prepare for your world to be changed as a female runner over the age of 40. Just like how your skyscraper needs to weather all conditions, ensuring its stability and preventing it from becoming rigid and inflexible, doing mobility exercises consistently will change your world. Mobility is different to flexibility. While both change over time, flexibility is more about the way a muscle moves across a joint, so being able to move it around a certain range of motion, whereas mobility is about the movement of that muscle around a joint combined with the stability of that joint. So it's not just a matter of stretching something, it's about being able to move within a particular motion. Why is mobility important? Essentially, movement is medicine. Different movements, making sure that different muscles aren't tight in specific areas. Mobility is the key to really ensuring that. As we're getting older, we tend to lose some of this flexibility or mobility, and by doing these mobility exercises, it's going to keep you fresh and limber for your training as well as just for everyday life. Even though you are a runner, for the most part, I'm finding that more and more life is quite sedentary. We're sitting at our desks, we're sitting in our cars, we're sitting in public transport. And even though we're running, as I mentioned, is cyclic. So it's the same movements over and over. And so the muscles in the body needs to move in multi-directional ways in order to function really, really well. Mobility will really help with this. I've had clients who have had sore backs or sore hamstrings for months on end, and then do a few mobility sessions, and all of a sudden that pain goes away. And that's touching on again that movement is medicine. We need to keep our bodies limber, we need to keep moving them, but moving them in the right way along with running. The biomechanics of your running gait don't really change over time. What changes over time is your body's ability to move in those ways. And as we get older, we know that there's degeneration of different muscular structures, and that is going to inhibit the range of motion that you can get into for your running gait. Again, we don't want to then get into those range of motions by just using flexibility, because when we just stretch a muscle, it's just going to return to the way it was before you stretch it. So we use mobility to be able to move within a motion or range using stability at the same time. And that is why doing mobility is life-changing. But the truth is, you can do more harm than good if you don't do it properly. Watch this video next, where we'll not only show you the 5 bodyweight exercises you should be doing, but how to do them so that you don't get injured.